time here. This is my first time actually coming out with my parents to serve. Yeah, but I really love my parents, so it's been good. Okay, so I'm actually going to share my testimony about just myself and how, like my dad said, like from shame and how I kind of got free of that. I mean, I know God still has to deal with a lot of shame. It's kind of like a lifelong process, if you know what I mean. But I got a really big breakthrough. So ever since I was young, especially the Chinese culture and everything, I was very much a perfectionist. How many of you guys here would be self-proclaimed perfectionists here? Yeah? It's like, I was like, I'm a perfectionist, I know, I'm proud of it, Like, I love to make things perfect, and, even my room, like, I would have these great phases when I would just, like, clean up everything and make everything so organized and everything, and I was like, I'm the perfectionist in my family, because my brother, on the other hand, he's, like, opposite of me. He's carefree, he doesn't care, and he's just happy-go-lucky, and I'm just like, like, do this, do your homework, Vincent, and I'll do all my homework. And actually, I was homeschooled from 6th grade to 12th grade. And as a homeschooler, my parents didn't teach me anything. Like, I had to teach myself. So actually, you have to be really disciplined. I had to read all my textbooks and teach pre-calc to myself and things like that. And my brother, on the other hand, that's why he's back in school. It's not easy. So I was just like, that's just the way I am, and I was really proud of it. But I realized, especially when I started serving at church, a lot of you guys know I don't go to college right now. I chose to serve God instead. Of course, you can serve God in college. That's not what I mean. But yeah, so especially when I started serving at church, I started realizing, things can't be perfect, they can't always be what I want them to be. And especially because my mom, she's a worshiper, she's very musical, and then I'm a worshiper and I'm musical too. And so she's like my boss, because she's the worship leader, and then I'm like a worship leader sub, she's like my boss in a lot of the things in church related. And that's really difficult, if you know what I mean. You're your parents' child, that's already hard enough. If you're your parents' co-worker or employee or something like that, that's even more you can think about it. And so it was really difficult for us during that season when I started serving, because I started getting really irritated with her. Even when I was just her kid, it was warm and fuzzy, it was okay. But when I started serving with her, everything she said just irritated me. I was like, Mom, I thought, because I was a perfectionist, I thought everything I did was perfect. I thought everything at least I wanted to seem perfect, you know what I mean? It may not, everyone knows you have issues, but to other people, they can't know that. And then so for me, it was really hard for me to admit that I was wrong. Sometimes it was really hard for me to admit I'm not right. And so a lot of times when I was with my mom and we talk about things, and then I'd be like, Mom, you don't know anything. Listen to me. I know everything. And then, I would try to, I was really, really offended. And then just during that time, we had a lot of conflicts. Actually, I think it's really amazing, when I didn't start serving at church, me and my mom's relationship was really great. I guess there wasn't very much interaction anyway. So. But then after I started, interacting with her a lot, that's when all the conflicts started coming. And then, we would, I would scream, and then all these things that happened, there'd be, tears and, fighting and everything. And I'd just be like, Mom, you don't know anything, why do you persecute me, And then, but I really felt, like my dad said, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because I was constantly, judging. This is wrong. This is right. I really like to get things done right, I like schedules. I like things like that. And when I served, before I served, I was like, this has to be perfect, and I go into it, and things like that. I like things to be done right. My mom, on the other hand, she loves people. She likes relationships, and she's like, this thing is okay, but this person, you have to make sure that you're patient. You have to make sure that and I was like, I don't understand that. We need to get this thing done, But it was really hard for me, and I was just like, Mom, you don't understand me at all, and you're wrong. You don't understand how this thing works. You're not as smart as I am, or something like that. And I I was really, just stuck. And I knew that it was something wrong. I knew that I needed to change because I was getting really irritated, and I saw the way that I was hurting my mom. I saw the way I was hurting myself. And a lot of times, after we would fight, I'd go to my room and I'd start crying, and I'd be like, I'm really frustrated. It wasn't actually, I wasn't crying because of my mom, I wasn't crying because of the situation. I was frustrated with myself. I was like, God, why'd you make me like this? Why do I have to be so perfect? Why do I have to be a perfectionist? Actually, I was really frustrated with myself. I was like, why do I get so angry so easily? Why am I so offended so easily? And I knew that, it was my problem. I knew something was wrong with me. I didn't like the way that things are going. I started blaming myself, God, maybe I'm just, I hate myself. I was like, I'm not fit to serve you. You don't want someone like me. I don't honor my parents, things like that. And then I was just really frustrated with myself. So I remember this one day, we just fought, and then I went to my room again, and I started crying. But then at that point, I was just like, okay. God, I confess. I'm not perfect. I am very, very weak. I need you. And then I think at that point, it was a turning point for me. I started being able to get on my knees before God more honestly, I'm not a perfect person. And I didn't have to pretend before God, because He knows. And then from that point on, I started really wanting to face, my issues, perfectionism and self-hatred, because I knew I was struggling with them, and I knew that they were actually really bad for my relationships. And so then, I remember around that time, I started listening to Mike Bickle. How many of you guys know who Mike Bickle is? He's the director of IHOP International House of Prayer in Kansas City. Anyways, he has this teaching about the Song of Solomon. And in Song of Solomon is the book in the Bible, it's after Proverbs, that talks about the Shulamite's journey, or the bride's journey. And basically the bride is us, right? And how we, in our interaction, our relationship with God. So in one verse in chapter 1 verse 5, it says this. It says, "Dark am I yet lovely." And he goes on to explain this, Mike Bickle goes on to explain this, says, "Dark am I yet lovely." So in King Solomon wrote this book. It's like a song. And so King Solomon's time, it meant that she had really low social standing, because you get dark by being in the sun a lot, right? And then you work. She had to tend the sheep with all the other shepherds. This was a woman who was working with the men. That's not good. The woman is supposed to stay home and cook or something. But that was the way they were. So if you were outside working and getting dark in the sun, it was actually really bad. It was a shameful thing. So this bride, this Shulamite, she says, "Dark am I yet lovely." So basically, it's saying even though we are dark, which means we have a lot of things, a lot of weaknesses, a lot of flaws, a lot of shameful things, but God still says that we're lovely. And we know that to be true, oh yes, I'm a sinner and God loves me. But it's really hard if you've ever tried at that moment when you just sin, when you just watch pornography, when you just fought with your mom, when you just, shouted doesn't curse words at your brother or something like that, and then you go to your room and you could be like, "God, you love me," something that's really, really tough. And then for me, it was just hard to believe, because I was always a perfectionist. I was like, if I'm not perfect, people don't like me. I always equated the things I did with how people approved of me. I always thought that, I was labeled as the good Christian girl, and not always that I liked the image it gave me, but I did like the perfect part. I was like, okay, I do like that part. So I always thought it was because, I do things well, I'm responsible, so all the parents like me, or all my friends, they approve of me, and things like that, and my leaders trust me. And I always thought it's because of what I did, I have to be responsible, I have to be disciplined, and I have to do all these things, and I never could just be who I was. At least I didn't think that was why they liked me. It's not just because of who I am, it's, the things that I'm doing. And so, for me, when I read this, I was like, "Dark am I yet lovely." It was really hard for me to believe that God says I'm lovely, even when I'm really ugly inside. You know what I mean? And so, I remember one time after I just fought with my mom, and then I went to my room again, had episodes like this, right? And so I went to my room, and then I knew I had two options. Option 1, I could go back into my rant. Melody, why are you so stupid? You're horrible, Why do you do this? You're not fit to serve God. Or option 2, I could be, God, I know I'm dark, but I'm lovely. Come and love me. I believe that I am lovely. And so I knew I had 2 options, and I chose option 2, praise the Lord. And so option 2, it was my first time trying this. I went to my room, I was still feeling like, I just got really mad at my mom, I feel really bad right now, but Lord, I choose to declare, dark am I yet lovely. And I just started going after it. I was like, yes, Lord, even though I'm dark, even though I just shouted at my mom, even though I'm not really good daughter, even though all this da-da-da-da-da, but I'm still lovely, you still love me. And then, so that's one example. The other one is Psalm 139:14. It says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. How many of you guys know this verse? It's a very, very well-known verse, right? But when you use it to declare it over yourself, that's a whole nother story. Like you finally tap into the power of the word. And I started doing that. I started declaring this verse in Psalm 1:5 over myself, be like, God, I know I am weak and wretched man, but you still love me. And I just started declaring it over myself. And over some time, I had episodes like this. But after this experience, I started realizing something was changing inside of me. I started feeling like, yeah, I'm lovely. I am good. I stopped hating myself so much. I stopped judging myself so much. Because the perfectionist, you judge others, but the most, you're your biggest critic, right? I judge myself a lot. I always thought, I'm not good enough, I have to do things better and better. But during that time, I started declaring these over to myself. Not just, when I felt good, but when I felt the worst. And I started saying, yes, I'm dark and lovely. And I started noticing, I started loving myself. And when I started loving myself, my relationship with my mom got better. And then I started realizing, I can listen to what she's saying. I can give her an honest chance to express her opinion. And then I, stopped judging her, from the get-go. And then I started realizing, hey, my mom's actually right, in a lot of things. And, my mom she's a very wise person. Out of all the IEs that I know, I think my mom is actually the wisest person. I will always trust her advice more than all my friends or anything. So actually, that was a revelation I got, after I started practicing this. And then, I started realizing, in Matthew 22, not this. Oh, this one, Matthew 22:39. What is this? The second commandment, right? That Jesus tells the people who are asking him. They were what is the greatest commandment? And just love your God, right? And then the second one is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Is everyone familiar with this? Yeah? It's the golden rule, right? And it's love your neighbor as yourself. And then the thing about this verse, we know we're supposed to love other people, and that's what we occupy a lot of our time with. I love you, I love you, I love you. But what we don't realize is you have to love your neighbor as yourself. If you don't love yourself, you can't love your neighbor. And so I was realizing that you can only love others as much as you love yourself. And that was a problem. I didn't love myself. I couldn't love my mom because I didn't like the way I was, And so I started realizing the more I started to love myself, the more I was able to love my mom. The more I started to honor the way that God made me, I'm different. The more I started to honor my mom, she's different, I started to be able to honor her and listen to her and honor my parents and things like that, honor my brother. And so I started realizing, I felt something was changing inside of me. And then, so this has been a period, I'm still working on it, but I feel like there's been so much greater freedom in my life after I started realizing this. That God doesn't just want me to serve him. God doesn't just want me to be a slave, oh God, holy God, I will do all these things for you. But he wants me to love myself because he loves me. And then I think this has brought the greatest freedom for me. For example, my relationship with my parents. Like, I'm able, really, because I don't look down on them anymore. Like, I know, okay, like, we're ABC. Sometimes it's really hard for us because our parents don't speak English very well. Or they don't understand our culture. So we're always like, yeah, you don't know what we're going through. You lived in Taiwan or China, like, you don't really understand. But, like, that was a really struggle for me because, like, God actually did give my parents a lot of wisdom. But if I would constantly live my life like, you don't know anything, then I'll never be willing to listen to them. But I feel like now, like, after God, like, healed me and all this stuff, I started to stop looking down on them. I was actually able to receive a lot from them. Like, for example, my mom's a worship leader. She's actually one of our church's, like, top worship leaders, whatever. And then, like, because I started, like, my relationship with her started getting better, I actually learned a lot from her. I feel like my worship leading improved a lot because I was willing to learn from her. And my dad, like, he's a good speaker, and then he's a good dad, and I actually really enjoy times when I could just sit down with him and hear him talk, because he really likes to talk. But anyways, and then, like, I just feel like my relationship with my parents improved a lot, and my relationship with God. Like, my relationship with God, I'm kind of like that Christian girl who grew up in church too, like a lot of you guys. And I'm just used to, like, doing PowerPoint for a worship team or singing on the team or, like, putting the chairs out, like, things like that. And I'm really used to it. But I always thought serving was, like, my obligation to God. Like, God just wants his church to be full of people who serve him. That's it. And I never could realize, like, anything beyond that. But after this, I realized that instead of serving out of obligation, I'm serving out of a place of love and belonging. Like, for example, worship. Like, I lead worship, and I remember I still do get nervous sometimes. And then I used to get really nervous before I led worship. I would be, like, the worship songs have to be like this, and the arrangements are like this, and like, I get really nervous, and I'd be like, I have to engage in worship, but I can't be too, like, crazy, I don't want to be too dramatic, and I want to be humble, and I want to be serious, but not too serious. And then I was like, how am I supposed to raise my hand, whatever. But then, like, I started realizing after I started having freedom, I started, like, worship was, like, from a place of enjoyment. It wasn't from a place of obligation. And I started serving God out of a place of belonging. Like, God, I'm your child, and you delight in my service. And that's why I'm serving you, not because I'm your slave or something like that. And then also my relationship with myself, right? Like I told you, like before when I was a perfectionist, every time I did something wrong, I'd be like, oh, you're horrible, what they said was right, you're stupid, da, 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 da. But now, like, I actually a lot more gentle with myself. I have more compassion on myself. And, like, when I do something wrong now, I usually just laugh it off. I'm like, oh, it's okay, Melody. People don't actually care as much as you think. And you'll do better next time. And then I'll be like, like, don't worry about it. And then I'll be like, actually, that's kind of funny, So, I tell myself these things. And then I realized, like, I started actually becoming healthier inside. I didn't care so much about what other people think. And, I feel like so many times, like, God gave us potential. God gave us gifts. But we're so often so scared to tap into those gifts because we don't even want people to think like, oh, she's being prideful, she's showing off or something. But I realized that after I started becoming more free, even my worship started improving, my singing started improving. Because I was like, I don't care what people think, I can try new things, I can step out of my comfort zone, I can step out of the box. And this is even just a way God wants us so that we can become glorious, like my dad said, like the glorious freedom. So it's really important for us to know, like, not just you're the child of God, be a child. But you have to know what gets in the way. And the things that get in the way are things like perfectionism, self-hatred, shame. And so, as conclusion, I just want to tell you, like, it's so much better to be free, okay, than to live in perfectionism, than to live in shame. I know, I've been on both sides, and it's so much better to have freedom. And also one more thing, if you guys caught this, is when I started declaring the word of God over myself, I feel like that's how I started getting true freedom. This is something that I think we should all practice, because faith comes by hearing. And sometimes we have to take the word of God and we have to declare it over ourselves. Like when I was saying, like, yes, I'm dark but lovely, I'm dark but lovely. So I'm going to show you guys this scripture. Can we read it together? For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. So this is spiritual warfare. If you guys didn't catch what my dad was talking about the other day, this is really what spiritual warfare is, like weapons of warfare, you know? And then that's what I was doing in my room. I was taking captive every thought. I'd be like, all those thoughts that say I'm not good enough, I'm not lovely when I'm dark, you know. I'd be like, I take you captive. I am dark. But I'm also lovely. Yeah. And so I would kind of declare that out loud. It's not just in my heart. You know. But I have to say it out loud to convince myself, convince my spirit, and to cause my spirit to align with the knowledge of God, to demolish arguments. What are arguments? They're those voices in your head. The lies in your head, the accusations from the enemy, like, you're stupid, you're horrible, you're not good enough, you have to do this perfect for people to like you. And I started to be like, shut up, I am dark but lovely, I take you captive, things like that. So this is what I call the mind, mouth, heart principle. Can we say that? Mind, mouth, heart. Which means the truth you know in your mind, like, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, I know that full well. But you have to declare it out for it to finally enter your heart. A lot of times it stays up here. And as Christians, I know, as people who grew up in church, we have a lot of stuff in here. And sometimes it's not so good if it doesn't go into your hearts. It just becomes or a bloated balloon or something. So we need to get it out of our mouth and then into our hearts. Then it actually becomes life. It actually does something. Otherwise, we're just like everyone else in the world. And then, what's the difference? So that's what I call the mind, mouth, heart principle. And you should try it. When you go home and you just did something horrible, you could be like, or you failed on your test or something. You'd be like, God, even though I failed on my test, I'm still lovely to you. I'm still perfect. I'm still good to you. And then declare that. Okay? I'm done.
I really want to say, Melody, she goes through this struggle, okay, from shame, and we can see the glory inside of her. It's really start growing. The Bible actually says like Elijah and Elisha story. Do you know that story? That Elisha, that when he see Elijah get lifted up in the heaven, right, and then his clothes fell off. And he was able to see his glory, that he got lifted up. When he can see that glory, and he can get that glory. Right now, the problem with many generations, especially the American or Chinese to America ABC, the children despise their parents, and that's why the inheritance. We talk about inheritance. That God wants to give you the inheritance, you cannot get it because you cannot see it. Right? So this shame issue that we need to deal with, especially the Chinese culture. Chinese people, we love faces, right? Me, losing my faith, right? And I'll share my part of the story. Okay, my biggest shame issue is I had this anger problem. Okay, anger problem, and that is also caused by losing faith. And actually, I'm going to share it with you this story because when Melody was 6, 7 years old, she started learning piano from her mom. And her mom is a piano teacher then. Okay, I was a director in a company and she's a piano teacher. And so she teach students, she got 40 students. And Melody is just starting and learning from her mom. It's free, right? That's so good. Your piano teacher is your mom. What can be better than that? At least that's what I saw. Save a lot of money. But then 1 year later, and then they go to my mom. My wife, she take her student to a piano competition. She's one of the teacher association for the piano. So and then I take my daughter with her. And then we also join the competition. And that's the first time she ever entered a piano competition. And she only learned piano for 1 year. And then she played terribly in the competition. She even like making mistakes, just like 1 minute song, she made like 5, 10 errors or something. And I was out there listening to this thing, and I was feeling like I'm losing face, terribly losing face. Okay, your mom is a teacher, and come with all these other students. Some of them were like achieving reward, and first, second, and you are like not even the first level. You didn't enter. You're like, oh, so shameful, and I get this anger in me, brewing. And when she come out, I shout at her. Can you imagine? 7-year-old girl, and the father was shouting at her, and she was stunned. And she looked at me and she said, "I want mama." I was shouting at her. I was shaming her, using it as a tool. Maybe I was thinking that if I shame her enough, that she will be better. I don't know, but And then she just said, "I want my mama." Take her to her mom. I walk in the front and she will follow me. I don't even want to hold her hand. I don't even want to hold her hand. I was just trying to shame her, like trying to, I don't know, disown her or something. It's like, I'm ashamed to be your father like that, And then when she get to see her mom, and she just cried out and she said, "I don't want to learn piano anymore." And then she stopped. Just 1 year. She stopped learning piano, even though her mom is a piano teacher. Okay? And then then we come to California when she's like 10 years old. And we come to Fremont, and we have this teaching, and the pastor teaches to wait upon the Lord, and all this teaching. And one day I was sleeping, and suddenly I got this dream. God gave me a dream, and in the dream, I'm a terrorist. And my weapon is a chewing gum. And how does that work? I can chew this gum in my mouth and chew it, and then I can take it out and throw it at people, and it becomes a bomb. The more I chew it, the more powerful the bomb becomes. And then I throw at this person, boom, and they were like, blow into pieces, and I throw into that, and then people start chasing me, and they want to kill me. And I run into this high tower, and they all surrounded me. And I got this last chewing gum at hand, so I chew it up, and then I throw myself down and throw it, and everybody died, including myself. And I go, wake up. Because, you cannot die in your dream, right? You know that, right? And I wake up, and I said, wow, what a nightmare, must be the pizza I ate. Yeah. But, I was like shaking, and my wife says, "What's going on?" I said, "I had a nightmare." I said, and I share with her my nightmare, my dream. My wife says, "Why don't you wait upon the Lord?" I said, okay. My heart is still pumping, so I wait there. I sit up, I'm waiting there, and I bow my head and I say, "Lord, what is this? What's this dream about?" And then God says that you are a terrorist. Don't you know that? And I say, "Why?" And then suddenly, just as soon as I say, "Why?" And this, like, it's playing a movie in slow motion. That God bring me back to this 6, 7 years ago, that when I was taking her to the piano competition. And then God showed me the whole thing, like in slow motion. And God showed me how my reaction to her failure, not performing, not really a failure, but not performing well to my expectation and my anger, and then what I say to her, every word coming out from my mouth, the way I shame her, my anger, and God starts showing me that. And then God says that you're hurting your daughter with your own word. Don't you know that? And suddenly I realized that I've been hurting her because of my own faith issue, my own shame causes my anger, and my anger is hurting the person that I love the most. I would die for her. I can give everything to her. And yet, because of this shame issue, and God wants to deal with me that. God want to deal with me, this shame problem. And so I bowed my head. I said, Lord, what can I do? And God says, go apologize to her. So I waited. I wake up at like 5:30 or something, so I waited until like 7:30, and I go to her room. I wake her up. I said, Melody, and that's when she was 12 years old. I said, Melody, Dad just had a nightmare, and this is what God told me. Do you remember that event that, I took you to the piano competition, and then I blasted at you? Do you still remember that? And she said, yeah, I remember. And I said, could you forgive me? And she looked at me and she said, yeah, I forgive you. I forgive you. And then I put her hand over my head and says, you say the prayer to forgive your dad. And she does. And so she prayed over me and forgive me. And then I put my hand over her head and I said, Lord, cancel all the curses that I ever put to my daughter, and then replace it with double blessing. I want to bless her from now on. All the gifts that you give to her, all the inheritance that you give to her, and call her into the full destiny that you made her, that you call her. And I start blessing her. All the gift that her mom has, the musical gifts, all the gift, the wisdom that her dad has. I start blessing her, And then a few weeks later, when I come back home from work, I heard piano playing in my home. And my daughter was on the piano by herself. She's not even learning from her mom. She just go to the piano and start learning how to play chords and this and that, and she take a worship song, just put it on the piano and start playing by herself. And then later on I start hearing songs that she composed herself. At 12 years old, she wrote her first song. And the song goes like this. I know who I am. I sit at King Jesus' right hand. I know who I am. I'm the one who is loved by the King. He proclaimed over himself, I know my identity. I'm loved by the King. I'm a princess. And then at age like 15, she had her first album, kind of. We didn't publish it, but she wrote like 10 songs, and we put it into a CD, and we give it to friends, So she started writing songs, and she started walking into her destiny. And all because that, we started to deal with this shame problem. And then she forgave me. She forgave me. And I deal with my shame problem by facing it, by facing the problem. And I go to her to apologize to her and asking for forgiveness. So today, these are the things that, as Melody said, that we would do. And I would like to let us proclaim this word together, all right? And I would encourage you to find your verses that tell you who you really are and your identity. You could pick from these, or you can pick from other Bible verses. And here I'm showing another one, the Psalm 3:3. Okay, that's written by King David. Okay, so the first one, dark am I yet lovely, and also I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, that Melody explained. But I'm going to just mention a little bit about this Psalm 3:3. Let's read that together. But you are a shield around me, O Lord. You bestow glory on me and lift up my head. Okay, God, you lift up my head. It's King David wrote this. Do you know in what circumstance that he wrote this psalm? If you read the psalm, if you have the Bible, you open up, there might be some small words there. It says that when King David was chased by his own son, Absalom, right? His son is chasing him. trying to kill him. And I know most of you here are not married, you don't have children, but probably the most shameful thing that a person can have is being chased by his own son, trying to kill him. Right? That's really shameful. But yet, King David says that, God, you are the God. You are my glory. I don't want to live in shame anymore. You bestow glory upon me. You lift up my head. I can still lift up my head and look at you. Like Melody said, when you fail, when you it's like, how can I do this? Why am I so stupid? Why am I so, bad-tempered and so on and so on? And God says that, come to me. That's why the whole Bible, there's only one person that Bible says that this man is after my own heart. Who is that? King David. King David, he's the one who is after God's heart. Okay? So it's not that how much rule you can follow, how much commandments that you have obeyed, but it's do you know God's heart? God's heart is when you fail, come to him and believe in his grace, that he will become your glory. All right? So can we all stand up and let's proclaim these words upon ourselves. All right? All right? Let's proclaim 3 times. All right? Let's put our hand over our head and say, these verses are for me. Are for me. Okay? You need to proclaim this with your emotion. All right? Let's do that. Dark am I, yet lovely. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. But you are a shield around me, O Lord. You bestow glory on me and lift up my head. All right, second time. Let's like shouting it from our heart. Okay? Okay, put your hand over your heart also, okay?